Hello and welcome back to the Pulse with Willie and Al. How's it going today, Al?
Living the dream, Willie. We're doing all right. Pretty cloudy day here in New Hampshire, but we're making it happen.
Yeah, man. We are back for our 18th episode. Can you believe it?
Yeah, this episode can vote. That's the name of the name of the
Yes.
episode today.
It can also
Yeah,
get drafted too, if it needs
sure
to,
can.
right?
Yeah.
So, man, well, definitely glad to be back again, man. Before we jump into things and get started here, I just want to remind you guys, if you haven't yet, make sure you smash that subscribe button, like the video. If you don't like it, we don't like you. Just kidding. Tell us what we can do better, right? We want to get better, and we want to be able to deliver you content that you want to see. So feel free to drop us a comment. Let us know what we can do better. But today is actually it's packed full of NFL breakdowns for Week 7, some coverage on the NLCS and the ALCS. So buckle up and get ready for a wild ride here, guys. You ready for this, Al?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
All right, let's dive in. So first, we've got Detroit at Baltimore. Detroit, they're getting 3 points, and the over/under's 42 on this. You know, Al, I got to ask you, man. I'll let you open it up here. What's the storyline here for you in this game?
I think for me, Detroit has been building a lot of momentum this season, and I think this is a real test for them. I think this is hey, we should win this game against a very good team. Can we actually live up to expectations and beat this team?
Yeah, and you're right.
Because
It is a good team in
because
Baltimore.
because they're facing a quarterback that like is really hard to game plan for. Lamar Jackson, like you can't game plan for that speed. You can't.
Right.
You can't game plan for like if he takes off, like what are you going to do with that? Like so I really think this is going to be where this is a good measuring stick game for Detroit.
I definitely think so, and I hope they're up to the task for it. You know, for me, I've got to say, I think seeing the maturation of Jared Goff, and I know some people don't feel as strongly about that, but he is in the running right now for MVP for the season. I wouldn't say he's the front runner for it, but the way he's playing and the way he's leading this team, I mean, they're tied for first in the NFC. I mean, what he's done with this team is provide them steadiness at the QB position, which is something they haven't had. Well, I guess since Matt Stafford was there, right? But Matt Stafford just didn't
Yeah,
have a team around him at that point. So they had the quarterback then and one guy in Calvin Johnson, but they didn't have a team around them. Now they've got a team and they've got a quarterback, which is a great thing. So my big thing is, and I really am a big fan of Jared Goff. I thought he got kind of run out of LA unfairly, but and people gave him too much grief for the way he kind of played there. But my big thing is this guy can make every throw on the field. When you look at him, I just think he's fitting the ball in tight windows. If they go and a team takes the running game away from them, he's shown that he can be able to throw the ball and not be ineffective doing that. Doesn't turn the ball over as much as he was in past seasons. And with a healthy Jamison Williams here, this looks like a very good team now.
absolutely. Goff has really been what's made this team go. I mean, completing almost 70% of his passes, only 3 interceptions to 11 touchdowns. Really just he's that steady hand that this team needs.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? He's cool, calm. Like you never seem to rattle this guy. And if you are rattling him, you can't tell, which I think is a really good sign of a really good quarterback. And it's something that this team has kind of needed for some time.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've got a lot on this team, but some really good key pieces. And you look at some of the great teams through the years that we've watched. They obviously have a good quarterback there. They've got good pieces around him, but I always seem to find that there's a good center attached to that. And I look, Frank Ragnow is just, I mean, this guy's a mauler the way he plays the game. And I think he gives Jared Goff a great level of comfort, as do some of these other guys. Sam Laporta, Jamison Williams, who I mentioned. I mean, he had a ridiculous catch against Tampa Bay. Did you see that?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
that was insane. I don't know how he caught that.
yeah,
I don't.
he's special, man. And it's
Yeah.
Hopefully we're going to get to see more of that as this season goes on. The last piece of that on offense is Amon Ra. I mean, this guy has been that dude since he started playing in the NFL. I challenge you to find someone that's been more consistent than him, because this
Yeah.
guy's getting 7 to 9 targets a game and he's turning it into production. I can't remember the last time he had a bad game. Like, I don't know. I feel like guys like that are very hard to scheme out because he's not a number one receiver that beats people, on the outside or anything. This guy's running out of the slot, running everything on the route tree and being able to produce with it.
Yeah, especially too consistently, at or over 100 yards receiving. Usually catches a touchdown pass. Like he's one of Goff's favorite targets this year. The guy is just a true prototypical number one receiver,
Hmm.
and what kind of sets the tone for that team.
Yeah, absolutely. I know they're going to miss Montgomery. Campbell was saying he's probably going to be out a few weeks because of that rib injury. It sounded nasty. They
Yeah,
said like he had cartilage ripped off of the rib? Oh, that
yeah.
sounds terrible, man. Absolutely
It do,
terrible.
it does seem like from what I've been reading, Jameer Gibbs is trending upwards to play on Sunday against
Okay.
the Ravens,
Yeah.
which I think is going to be a huge boost for them. Because if not, it's just Craig Reynolds. Like that's
Ye-
the only running back they have. So having Gibbs, I think will be a nice welcome back for that offense, especially because Montgomery does so much for that team. You're gonna really, I think they're gonna miss him quite a lot.
mhm. Yeah, I'm very high on the Lions. I'm glad that they're doing well. I'm happy for the city of Detroit, their fans as well. But this team really is walking with a swagger. And I know there's been, the talks like, okay, they haven't won a playoff game in 55 years, or they've only won one in 55 years, something like that. But it's the sad part about it is this team, no one on this team played during those times. So
Yeah,
I don't want to throw stats out the door, but they really aren't relevant because this is a different team, a different squad. They're
yeah,
they're playing with a swagger and they're running the ball very well. They're playing good defense, and when you have a guy like Aiden Hutchinson on the other side, I mean, he is awesome to watch. He truly
yeah. He
is.
he just disrupts everything that opposing offenses are trying to do, and he just makes life very difficult.
Did, did,
And I think that this team, I'm really starting to believe in this team because, first of all, they take care of business against the bad teams.
mhm,
The bad teams that they've played this year, they have absolutely just beaten the pants off
mhm.
of. And then, you know, beating Kansas City in Kansas City, that's a big win for them.
Yeah,
Like I
that's
say what you want about the Chiefs, but that was very much a Lions win, not a Chiefs loss.
right. Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like, and I know they lost to Seattle, but that game was weird. There's a lot of weird stuff that happened in that game. That game they took Seattle to overtime, and that's why I'm really excited to see what they can do against Baltimore. This is going to be a really good test for them.
Yeah, they're undefeated in basically regular time football this year, and I really like that. There's a lot to be said for that. Shows they're playing the
Yeah,
full games and everything. But just looking at this, both of these teams, not just the Lions, but the Ravens run the ball very well. In addition to them, I'm looking at the way they play defense as well. They both are similar, but they do it in different ways, right? Detroit's better at defending the run. You look at Baltimore better at defending the pass. So let's just chat for a minute about Baltimore's defense. It seems like they're finally starting to get healthy. I know it sounded like a broken record there at the beginning of the year for us as we were talking about
yeah,
them. Every week it was like, oh yeah, but they're banged up in their secondary. Seems like all those guys are starting to heal now. And one of the things that just amazes me about this team is Roquan Smith. I mean, their linebacking core is very good, but Roquan Smith is scary good. Like, what were the
yeah.
Bears thinking getting rid of this guy?
The same thing they were thinking when they got rid of Khalil Mack as
Yeah,
well. Like it's insane. But their linebacking core is just deep.
yeah,
They have guys like Roquan Smith. They have Jadeveon Clowney playing linebacker for them. They have Kyle Van Noy. Like they just have dudes at linebacker that can play and that have been in big situations.
yeah.
And I think that's really telling for them. When things get tough, this is a defense that they have dudes that have been in tough situations in big moments that they can lean on.
Yeah. And I don't know. I just like the way this team gets after the quarterback, man. You look at it,
Yeah.
there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. 24 sacks this year, but the bigger stat for me, and I mentioned this last time in one of the games we broke down, 44 quarterback hits. That is
Yeah.
insane, man. Like that is awesome. So you have 24 sacks. That means 68 times you've hit the quarterback this year. My biggest
Yeah.
concern for them, and I think that's an absolutely tremendous stat that they've been able to put up. My biggest concern is the turnovers. They've got 8 turnovers, and that just is when you start to get into the postseason. You need your defense not to just hold teams, but you need them to be able to force turnovers. And with only 8 turnovers right now, that's just not enough to be able to put the ball back in the offense's hand enough times.
Yeah. Yeah. They shoot themselves in the foot a lot. And that's my one concern with this team. They, there are times they look like world beaters on defense, and then there are other times like they're just getting torched for random reasons that you don't understand why. And then it's the same thing with Lamar that like has always kind of been his thing. Is like he does like two or three things every game. And you're like, I don't know how you stop that. And then
Yeah.
he does something just as equally as maddening, and you're like, why'd you throw that pick, man? Like there's nobody around.
Hmm.
Like, and that's I mean, unfortunately, the Ravens are going to go as far as Lamar can take them, and Detroit's defense is really good. So like if Lamar's not careful Sunday, this game could get out of hand in a hurry. It really could.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. When you and I, we talked about Aiden Hutchinson. Watching him get sacks is like a work of art. It's poetry watching that happen. If Lamar is not careful with the football, that ball's going to be all over the ground. And when I when I look at the way Lamar has kind of, I wouldn't say failed this year because he hasn't failed, but the way he's kind of made some mistakes is he's fumbled a lot this year. Granted, he's gotten some of them back, but when you fumble 6, 7 times this year and you're losing 4 of them, that's not good. Like that's not good at
Yeah.
all. I expect more out of him. And like you were saying, this team's going to go as far as he can take them. I don't know. With the turnovers piece, I mean, we saw it in the Pittsburgh game with him. They just couldn't compensate for that. And they were ugly turnovers. Like, let Russell Wilson do that, bro. Like, he's good at ugly turnovers. You don't need to steal the spotlight from him.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, with Baltimore, the things they do well though is they run the ball really well,
Hmm.
and that's something you need. Like that's kind of there was always the old adage in the NFL in the '90s and 2000s: could you run the ball? Could you run the ball well and have a good defense? And
Yeah.
they do have both of those things. So I mean, it just really kind of falls on Lamar. Like, because what happens when it comes playoff time and you can't stop and you can't get 4 or 5 yards of carry on first and second down, and you're looking at third and 8?
Yeah.
Like, what do you do then? And like that's where it's going to have to come down to Lamar. And Lamar can't just beat everybody with his legs all the time, because when you start playing really good teams, they're going to scheme against that, and they're
Yeah.
going to dare you to beat him with his arm.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
let's find out here. Who do you have winning this game? How do you think this is going to shake out?
I think this is going to be, because this is two really good defenses. I think this is going to be a low scoring affair. I think it's going to be Detroit 19, Baltimore 17.
Okay, I was actually pretty close. So we're coming real close to each other on these and stuff.
Yeah.
I've got Detroit at 24, Baltimore 21. So I'm hoping that it's going to be a good game. I want to see some good hitting. I want to see some good offense as well, and I think that gives us enough within that score to be able to get both of those done. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'll talk about a game that's definitely not going to be low scoring. Watch us say this, and it's going to be like 10-7, right? But the Miami Philly game. Now, Philly's getting 2 points here. The over/under's 52, which it could be 82, and I wouldn't be surprised. But what do you have for this game? Like, what are the big storylines for you here?
I think for me, this is a real remember a couple weeks ago we got really excited for that Miami Buffalo game, and then Buffalo went out and hung 48 on them.
Hmm.
This feels a lot like this, where like this is a Philly's kind of reeling. They took their first loss against the Jets in a weird game that frankly they just didn't play well, and Miami's just kind of rolling right now. And I just until Miami can prove it to me, I don't trust that they can win big games. I don't, and I know that stinks, and I know and with Carolina on Sunday, like they were down 14-0 pretty quickly, and you're like, the fuck? Like, what's going? And then Miami is like, oh, my bad, and then just reeled off 35 straight.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
but
But it makes you
you
wonder,
can't
right?
do that against you can do that against Carolina. You can't do that against Philly.
This is the thing. You can't do that against a team like the Jets.
No,
That's the thing. If this offense is very good, but if there's anything I've learned, especially being a Colts fan and a Broncos fan while Manning was there, is that it doesn't matter how good your offense is. If you run into a good defense, they're going to make you pay every
no,
time.
defense wins championships. It
Every
does.
single time. So, except in the Super Bowl when the Colts beat the Bears, but their
Yeah,
defense won that. So, I mean,
yeah.
but yeah, but you're absolutely right. Like Miami's a lot of fun to watch. It's it's like you never know who's going to score. Well, you kind of do, right, with Tyreek Hill, but you never know if it's going to be Tyreek Hill or Raheem Mostert or Jalen Waddle or Achan when he was there, right? Like all these guys have the capability to take it to the
Yeah,
house, but when you come up against a good team, especially a team that was just humbled, and they talked about it after that Philly game that a lot of the leaders of that team spoke in the locker room and basically said like, "Get it together, guys. We need to get it
yeah.
together." So I don't know. I think this could end up bad for Miami. But
I think
one thing I want to mention, just because I want to get your opinion on it, I know we've chatted about him before, but Mike McDaniels, man, like this guy's must-watch TV, is he not? Like,
yeah, he's a weird dude, and I love him for that. But I also too like his story too is really cool. Like the dude had it all in this league, and he almost lost it all due to alcoholism. And I think that like, and it, he talks about like the numbers like something like 800 and something days, like he's or something like that. He's been sober, and like that's like he's really open and honest about that, which I really appreciate. And I think that's just like speaks to the character of him that like he knew he had a problem. He knew he was about to lose everything that he had worked so hard for, and he decided to make the choice to like be sober. And I really like for that story alone, I will always admire a dude like that. That's always like working towards something like sobriety. So
yeah,
I think just a good dude that's really funny.
well,
Like,
and it's also important, like very good points you brought up there about that because they're very pressing issues that affect a lot of families in America and stuff. But even as we go through this and like talk about it, I look at McDaniel's the big thing. Geez, this guy's trying to get in here right now. He wants to comment on it too, I guess maybe. All right, so
yeah, bring him in. Bring him in.
yeah, bring him right in. So
Yeah.
with McDaniel's, I think the nice thing that it does is it sets a really good example for players, right? Like a lot of these guys, we think that they're older guys, but a lot of them are fresh out of college. They haven't really been an adult yet. They're coming
Yep.
into adulthood. So when you have a guy like this that's young, hip, dynamic, has been through some adversity, he really paves the way in getting you to understand how to become an adult. And I don't know. For me, I have a ton of appreciation for that. I think he's got this team, even though they're not playing great on defense, he's got them focused towards the common goal of where they're the
Yep.
direction they're moving in. You see the way Tua responds around him. I think they have a great relationship to each other. He's very dynamic in his play calling. So there's a lot of things I really do like about him. Did you see the clip they had of him when they were asking him about Manziel?
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Just insane. I forgot that he was on that team.
Yeah, I didn't know that he was. I never knew that
Yeah,
he was
I'd
with the
forgotten about
Browns.
that. Yeah.
That it was so funny. He's like, yeah, we all kind of knew that. Like, I don't know, there was rumblings in there that like he wasn't really the pick that we wanted to make. But he's like, even told them that like, yeah, he's not studying, he's not watching any film, but we just kind of knew like it was what it was. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
This is so
Insane.
wild. Like, oh man, it's run like Animal House, but. he
Yeah,
speaking of his dynamic play calling and stuff, the way he's able to scheme open Tyreek Hill, and I know a lot of that goes and speaks to the talent of Tyreek Hill, but he puts him in a lot of positions for him to be able to succeed, get the ball in his hands
yeah.
quickly. I know one of the matchups you were looking at, as we talked about this previously, was Tyreek Hill and Darius Slay. So what do you think about them? How do you think this is going to go for them? And do you think Slay's going to be embarrassed by the end of the day?
Um, I'm gonna say yes, just because Tyreek Hill's embarrassed everyone so far. Like I don't like he almost has 1,000 yards receiving already. That's insane.
Yeah.
Like in every game, the game plan I would imagine for defenses is like, hey, do not let Tyreek Hill beat us. And then, like you watched in the Carolina game, he just runs. He's so fast that he just runs go routes past people. And there's nothing you can do to stop that.
I,
There
I
isn't.
I think it's deemed a success if you keep him under 200 yards, right? Like,
I think it's
uh,
the Patriots kept him under 100,
yeah,
and I was
that's.
like, hey, I'll take it.
I mean, Bill, that's incredible for Bill because I remember some of those Chiefs games they had against the Pats they were not so lucky with that. So
No,
it's he's an absolute game wrecker when it comes to that. Someone asked me, I had a kid at school today asked me who's the best player in the NFL. I thought about it for a second. I wanted to go defense, but I was like Tyreek Hill, man, Tyreek Hill.
yeah,
Like guy is just a
yeah,
stud. So on the other side here, we've got Philly, right? So it was a humbling loss, obviously. Do you see Jalen Hurts coming back and rebounding from that three interception performance?
absolutely. I that team has so much good leadership on that team that I think that they probably looked pretty deeply inside themselves and are like, hey, we can't keep doing this. Like, I know we're not firing on all cylinders right now, but like, we're gonna start running into really good teams. And if we excuse my language, if we fuck around with them, the same thing's gonna happen.
We're gonna find out.
We're gonna keep losing.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And this team is Super Bowl or bust this year.
Yeah,
It's winning the Super Bowl for them, and anything short of that's going to be disappointment for them. And
absolutely.
I think they know that this is a really big game, and I think they're going to really get up for it.
Hmm.
And I think you're especially going to see it on defense, especially with that front seven. Man, I think they are going to make Tua's life a nightmare.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to, right? So they need Jordan Davis to show up big. They need to get a lot of pressure on him. Hassan Reddick, all of these guys, they really need to
Yeah,
step up and have monster games, and wreak havoc. And that's the big thing. Speaking of pressure and stuff, you look at what the Jets did with Hurts, and they got pressure on him, right? They got in his face. They got. What reminds me of that, and the reason I'm bringing that up is Philly's got a lot of playmakers on their defense, especially in their front seven, that can get
yeah.
that kind of pressure. I don't think they go as deep in their front seven as the Jets do, but I definitely think that they have enough that they can rattle Tua. And if they start to get him rattled, maybe that's a way you can disrupt this offense. Could be the blueprint for beating Miami.
Well, that's exactly what Buffalo did
Yeah, I was gonna
in
say,
that first matchup.
yep.
Yep.
I expect Buffalo laid the blueprint for him, so maybe they're going to use some of the same stuff to be able to do that. How much AJ Brown do you expect to see out of this?
I think a lot. I think it's him and Devonta Smith are gonna have to have huge monster games.
Hmm.
With AJ Brown, like he's really the last month, he's just been putting up big numbers. After that Minnesota game where he had 29 yards, and he was like, hey, like he kind of got mad. He's like, hey man, like I play on this team too. And then since then, it's his lowest output was 127 yards
Yeah.
receiving. Like he just has been killing it. And I think for them, he's gonna have to keep putting up those numbers.
Hmm. Well,
And I think too,
yeah,
there's a little more to that. I think where it really starts to get him open in those great situations, DeAndre Swift's going to have a monster game too.
yeah, they got to run the ball, man. Like they have to, and you can against Miami. You can push
Absolutely,
the
you
ball
can.
against this defense. They're not that good
Yeah,
that you can't run the ball or throw the ball against them and stuff. I kind of felt bad for Devonta Smith at the end of last week. Like it was just like an ugly drop, and it's uncharacteristic of him. He didn't have
yeah,
that great of a game. Like it just I I hope they get him involved early and they go to him often, boost up that confidence again. I don't think he's lost confidence because of that or anything like that. Like this guy's a great football player in the NFL, but I hope they get him involved early so that he can be an active part of that because you want again, we're not concerned about what's happening right now. We're looking towards the end of the season. Okay, where's this team going to be? And they need to get in a good rhythm of playing well during that time. So,
Yeah, it's been a tale of two. Like ever since that Vikings game, like when because I remember he started the season like he was the main focal point for Jalen Hurts,
mhm,
and then after that Vikings game, like he's just kind of fallen off a cliff a little bit.
yeah, it's been ugly.
And like they need when that offense is operating at full strength and full speed, it's when both of them are putting up big numbers.
Right. And Goddard's involved, and they're running the ball
Yep.
well with Swift. Like I was saying yesterday when we recorded, like we've yet to see them put forward like a complete game running and
Yeah.
throwing the ball. So maybe this is the week they're able to do it against a pretty, porous defense with Miami. But who do you have winning this game?
I actually think Philly's gonna smash Miami here. I think Philly, it's just they're gonna just do a bunch of DeAndre Swift running the ball, and I think they're just gonna run it down Miami's throat. They're gonna keep that offense off the field as much as they can. I think this is a 31-17 win for Philadelphia
Ooh, wow. So
because
yeah.
I don't trust Miami in big games until proven otherwise. Like I don't trust them.
Yeah, I have it actually being a little bit closer. I got Philly 28, Miami 24. But we'll see, man. Like I just want to see a great football game. This is one we've looked forward to for a long time, and it's like a heavyweight knockout with this game, right? It's supposed
Sure
to be
is.
a great Sunday night football game. We haven't had a great one in a little while. I'm looking forward to it. So.
Yeah.
But all right, well let's talk about where the lights might even be brighter right now. Let's transition over to baseball. So we've got Texas and Houston. Now this is kind of interesting, man. Like the first game, Texas won Sunday night, 2-0 over Houston, and I looked, I was like, all right, like okay, so I know both of us had picked Houston to win this series, so I I
Yeah.
looked at it and I was like, well, if anything's right, it's that Al and I will both be wrong. Me
Yep.
first and Al second, right? So, but Texas comes out, they beat Verlander game one. He only gave up 2 runs, man. Like, come on,
Yeah.
like,
Game one was just all about Jordan Montgomery shutting everyone down and
yeah,
making Jordan Alvarez. Well, so it came out after that game that Jordan Alvarez was dealing with like a stomach bug or like an illness of some kind, but also Jordan Montgomery struck him out 3 times. Like, and you don't
yeah,
get the jump on Alvarez like that very often,
yeah,
especially what he's been doing in these playoffs. And yeah, that was really the story in game one. Was Verlander pitched well, just didn't get any run support. Texas did just enough. Montgomery pitched really well, and then their bullpen Texas's bullpen just shut him down.
yeah. It seemed obviously very low scoring and stuff, but Um, you know, I see exactly what happens. Texas comes right back just after I think like, okay, well maybe they just got the best of them that game, right? Like Houston's going to turn it around. They've got enough studs on this team that have had enough playoff experience to be able to whip this around. Texas comes right back and beats them again in game
Yeah,
2, right? So like,
and and that's with Jordan Alvarez hitting 2 monster home runs,
yeah,
and it wasn't enough.
I mean, so Texas jumped out to the early lead, right? 4 runs in the first, but
Yeah,
like they forced Valdez out of the game in the second inning. I thought that was very impressive to be able to do that.
yeah.
And then it just seemed like they were kind of in the driver's seat. And I don't know, this one thing, and I wanted to mention this yesterday, G, but I just didn't have time on this. It's just that um I'm seeing this trend of like getting these star pitchers out early and I guess just for those of people that don't know, like what does it mean when you get to the bullpen quickly? I guess that's what I'm trying to get to is like what does
So that
that mean?
so back in the day, that used to mean like you just didn't have good starting pitching. But what the analytics have shown now is that to be the most effective, you can face a lineup twice through the order. When you start getting to that third time through the order, that's when the numbers show that like your ERA really spikes after that. So a lot of times that means like by the fifth or sixth inning, you've seen the order twice,
Hmm.
the lineup twice through. So a lot of times they pull guys after that just because they're like, hey, like we're just not running that risk. And they have enough. And bullpens these days in Major League Baseball are so good, and they have so many arms that like you can kind of like get away with that really. Um, Texas's bullpen has been used a lot this postseason, but they have so many different guys, and their ERA is a shade over two. It's like 2.01 in the playoffs for their bullpen, which is just incredible. Um, it's funny too because their bullpen was the reason in August and September that they blew that division because they should have won that division going away. And this is my favorite stat that I heard. I think it was last night I heard this. Texas is the first team to ever make the postseason with more blown saves than actual saves. That's how bad their bullpen was this year. It was atrocious.
Oh man, and you're an Iglesias owner. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I've watched bad closers all year with him. Like, and they traded for Aroldis Chapman during the season, thinking like that was going to make a difference, and it did. It did a little bit, but they've really started leaning on this guy Leclerc, and he has three saves for him in the playoffs, and he's just kind of been he has that cool, calm, collected demeanor, and he's been kind of the anchor to close out games. And Bochy's kind of figured it out around that.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I mean, not to mention like when you're getting good pitching like that, especially good relief pitching, it makes it uh, easier, I guess, on them
yeah,
when you're hitting the ball. And I look at it now, like the Rangers had 7 runs on 14 hits, which is that's very solid. Like
yeah.
to me that jumps off the page, and I'm like, wow, that's they're making it very difficult for Houston with this because now they've lost both those games at home. Now you got to go to Texas.
Houston has been notoriously bad at home this year. I
I
will
did
say
see
that
that.
Houston's record on the road is much better.
Yes.
So I'm not really shocked, but like also these two games could have gotten out of hand because Texas was 4-15 with runners in scoring position, which means they've had a lot of chances to really knock guys in, and they just haven't really done it as much as you thought.
Hmm.
The flip side to that is Houston. Houston just can't get anything going offensively right now. They're 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position. They've left 12 men on base these first two games. Like you can't do that. You cannot do that. Like you need to capitalize on those chances when you can, and they're just not doing it right now.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you: if you're Dusty Baker, what are you telling your guys going into this next game?
I think they know it's a must win. And I think that Dusty Baker said it himself after game two. He's not worried. He's not. This team is so playoff tested that they're not worried about that. Sure, do they want to be in a 2-0 hole going back to Texas to play to go to Arlington? No, that's not what they wanted. But they also know that they've been here before. They know what it takes to win, and they just know it starts one game at a time. And I actually think they're going to win game three. And I say that because I know Max Scherzer is going for them in game three, but he's coming off an injury that honestly I probably should have kept him out for the rest of the playoffs. And he's going to be on a pitch count. I think the most he's going to probably pitch is like 70 pitches
Yeah.
from what Bochy was saying last night. So if you can kind of rough him up early and really get to that Texas bullpen, they're already pretty overworked as it is. You could really break this game open. So
It is possible for that. Let me, you had mentioned something before that I just wanted to go back to real quick because I think it's important and I want to see if there's something I'm not seeing in it or not understanding, but it seemed like you were talking about runners in scoring position and not being able to drive runs in. It
yeah,
seems to me, at least, based on previous years of watching Houston, that they've just been unable to string hits together. Like, they scored 1 run in 4 different innings in game two. Are when are they going to string together like multi-run innings? Like it seems like that's what they were doing all the time in previous postseasons.
Yeah, Houston was really had a knack for the big inning, the big soul crushing. Like, hey, we put up like four or five runs in an inning, kind of like, and we'll talk about it. What Philly's been doing
Hmm.
against Arizona, it's just the big inning after big inning after big inning. Um, Houston just hasn't been doing that. You know, this team was hurt a lot of the year, and they haven't really. They are only just starting to gel now. I mean, Jordan Alvarez missed a bunch of the season. Same with Altuve. Like this team feels like it's still kind of a new team because they haven't all played together for most of the season. And so I think they're still trying to figure out like what their identity is with that. So, but I think this is the night. I think tonight they really, we're filming this on a Wednesday. So game three is at, I think, 8:07 tonight. I really think Houston. I think they're going to come out swinging hot, and I think they're going to get to Scherzer early.
Hmm.
I really do.
Yeah, I think Houston ends up snagging one tonight. We need them to in order for us to look like geniuses and
Yeah,
be right. So it's
yeah.
hopefully they're able to do it. Nothing bad against Max Scherzer, but I want to see this be a good series, right? I definitely want to see
Yeah.
that. So speaking of a series that may not end up as good as we were kind of hoping, Philly and Arizona. Now this is just, I mean, Philly last year seemed like a buzzsaw.
Yep.
What did they just come postseason? They're like, yo, let's take out the buzzsaw again. I mean,
Well, it sucks because like they won 90 games and like they finished 14 games behind Atlanta this year, and you're like, boy, they must not have been that good. But Philly, like the last 4 months of the season, regular season, were like one of the best teams. Like they started out. That's the thing with Philly is they start out like April, May. They're never really they're never really great. It takes them a little while to find their footing, but like come like June, like a switch is flipped, and then they just play like gangbusters the rest of the year. Um, Real quick PSA. Why are we still pitching to Trey Turner and Bryce Harper? Why? Just somebody answer the question why. Trey Turner's hitting 500 in the playoffs.
yeah.
500.
And Bryce Harper's not far behind him.
Yeah, Bryce Harper's hit like I think like 375. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
why are we pitching? Like, I know their lineup is stacked. I mean, you saw it last night with Schwarber. Schwarber hit 2 home runs last night, and
Yeah.
like, I don't know where you get these guys out, like where you find 3 outs per inning because it's difficult.
I mean, this is the thing. So like, and I feel like in previous seasons, sometimes there's that one guy that you have to watch in the postseason that is just that guy, right? Like last year for me, it was Soler. Like every time he was up to bat, I was like, yeah, I'm sorry, last year, 2 years ago, it was Soler. Like I wanted to watch him all the time because I knew when he got up, like there was a good chance he was going to have a monster home run. So it was like, but
Yeah,
the way Bryce Harper's playing, he's must-watch baseball. Like if you are not a baseball fan and you are tuning in, this guy is exciting to watch. And it kills
yeah,
me. It's like rubbing salt in the wound seeing him play so well, but people forget like he a two-time MVP? Like this guy's a stud, man. Like he's jacking balls out. Fans are going nuts. I'm watching the clips on TV. They are insane in Philly. Insane. Like I feel like that place may be impossible to win.
I mean, they are 6-0 in the playoffs on in Philadelphia. I'm sorry. They are sorry 2-4. They're 6-0 in the playoffs in Philly. Like that can't be said unsaid. Like they're really good at home. They're really good at home, and that crowd feeds off of them so much. It is my favorite thing to watch is when guys in Philly have been hitting home runs in the playoffs, watching it with the announcer's audio cut out, and all you hear is the stadium sounds,
Yeah.
and it's so goddamn loud.
Yeah,
It's so loud, and they are ruthless, and they are standing and they are shouting for 9 innings. And this Merrill Kelly before game two was like, "Hey, like I know it's like kind of loud there, but like I think the loudest that I've ever heard was this year during the WBC when Trey Turner hit that grand slam in Miami." And he's like, "That's the most nuts crowd I've ever been in, and I don't know if Philly can really top that." And then Merrill Kelly quickly found out, like, hey, no, they can.
Yeah.
They can.
Yep.
Um,
The
it's
Phillies are
just
like,
wild
hey,
too.
fans, here's free beer. Let's show them what we
Yeah.
can do.
Yeah. Like, it's wild. So, couple fun stats with Philly that I want to throw out there. They have 5 guys in their lineup right now hitting over 300 this postseason.
Yeah, it's just insane, man.
That's insane.
Yeah.
3 of them are hitting over 350, which is even more insane. And then also too, like they're pitching. So their bullpen ERA is like 1.5, I think, right now for the playoffs, which is insane.
Hmm.
But also it's Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler.
Yeah,
Like,
Wheeler, let's talk about him, man. Like, so, and this is something that
yeah.
I don't want to cut you off there because I know you're on a roll, man. Uh, Wheeler is I've got to ask you. So, okay, so he pitched 5 innings of scoreless, 5 scoreless innings in game one, and then he ends up giving up 2 in the sixth. Like, should they have pulled him after the fifth? Like, I think that's the part that I have trouble understanding because I grew up in the age, and I know you did too, of like, no, this guy can handle 8 innings or 9 innings,
Yeah.
and those days are done for the most part now.
No, because I actually like that he went out for the 6th because he had a low pitch count.
Hmm.
And like the name of the game is to try to get starters deep in the games if you can. And he only ended the game with like 81 pitches, but like quickly, like it was still kind of a close game. And Philly, Arizona tagged him for those 2 runs, and the decision was made like, hey, let's yank him. We have a really good bullpen. It's the equivalent of like in basketball when a team goes on a run, calling timeout to like stop the bleeding. That's
Right.
exactly what Philly decided to do. They're like, hey, I think this has the potential to get bad. Let's just quit while we're ahead. We have a really good bullpen. Let's just utilize that and just finish this game from there. And that's exactly what they did. So I have no fault with him coming out in the 6th,
Hmm.
for Wheeler going out for that 6th inning.
Yeah,
Not at all.
what about Gallen? So like I look at him and like he seemed to get hit around a bit by this Phillies team. I, I mean, he's a great pitcher. Is it just that he's running into this really hot team right now, or did he just not have it?
No, he just rated. He's a really good pitcher. He had a great regular season. He honestly, like, he just ran into a buzzsaw that is the Philadelphia offense right now. He made a couple mistakes in the first few innings, and guys got him. Guys
Yeah,
tagged him for a couple homers, and
he
like
got.
that's what yeah, that's what Philly's doing. They're just hitting bomb after bomb after bomb.
Hmm.
They've hit 19 home runs so far this postseason.
Yeah, I mean that's just it's insane, man. Like you were saying, Schwarber hit 2 yesterday. Like I feel like he's been terrible so far, from the later part of the season and like the beginning of the postseason, and then what the last 2 games he's hit 3 home runs.
So that's the thing with Kyle Schwarber. You love him as somebody that 2 years ago had him on my fantasy team. He hit under 200 this year. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, didn't he hit 148 on the season? I maybe I'm wrong about that, but it seemed
Yeah,
like he
no.
was
So
awful.
he hit 197 this year with 47 home runs.
Yeah, like, and he bet lead off, right?
Yeah,
How is that
he struck out
possible?
200. Yeah, and he struck out 215 times.
That's ridiculous, man.
Yeah,
That's
but
crazy.
and honestly, like that's what you get with him. You live and die with him as a long ball with a long ball, but like he's so good at it that like
Mhm.
they don't care.
And
They don't.
now that he's getting hot, like what does it mean for this team, like this lineup?
I like I said, like you just there are no easy outs in this lineup. And as a starting pitcher, like having to try to get 3 outs every inning against this team is just that wears you down quickly. And then when you're worn down like that, you leave one hanging over the plate, and then before you know it, you have a repeat of what happened in game 2, where Philly batted around in the 6th and 7th innings. And then before you know it, it was 10-0. And you're like, well, this game is over.
Yep.
Because that's the thing going into before that, it was only 3-0. Like when they pulled Merrill Kelly out, that game was still close. And then the bullpen Arizona's bullpen just combusted, and it wasn't pretty. And it wasn't fun to watch, and they were just hitting anything and everything, and not much you can do with that, man.
Well, okay, so you're up 2-0, right? So the Phillies
Mhm.
up 2-0 now. Who do you end up running out there against? Thought.
Well, I think so. They haven't announced the starter for Game 3 yet, but I've got to imagine it's going to be Ranger Suarez
Okay. And
because I don't know
I
who
mean,
else is
he
going to.
pitched incredible against the Braves. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't run him out there now. Like you
Yeah,
have to.
I think I think with him that's what you got to do, and just go from there. He he's been lights out for them in the postseason, and he's kind of gotten the trust of everybody on that team. I think they give it to him in Game 3.
So
I do.
I got something to ask you too. If Philly ends up winning Game 3, do you run your starter out there again, like the game one? Geez,
No,
Wheeler again, and try to nail it in 4 games.
nope, nope. Because I think that means you have 4 cracks to win one game. I think I think it's just you stay the course.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you try to figure it out in Game 4 and hope that you can just sweep them just and then be able to reset your rotation for the World Series. But I think that you just now is not the time for Philadelphia to try to push the buttons like that.
Yeah,
I
like
think go with what got you here and don't and just keep going that route.
yeah. I mean, does Arizona
Yeah.
even stand a chance now, or is it over for them?
I mean, I don't know what else like Arizona can do. That's the thing. Like they have some guys hitting and they have an okay lineup, but like their pitching has just gotten decimated. And also,
Yeah,
too, they're just not getting the chances with runners in scoring position. They're 0 for 4 with runners in scoring position in 2 games.
that's
Like,
rough.
so A, they're not capitalizing on those chances, but B, because Philadelphia's pitching's been so good, they're not even getting the chance.
Yeah, you had given statistics before about what was it, Houston or Texas with like 14 guys in scoring position, and they were like 4 of 14 for it. And it's like
Yeah,
you don't expect 0 for 4. It's just yeah, it's really
yeah.
really tough for Arizona, and they're a good story too. They really are, but I don't know. Philly is just that good. They're that good,
I
man.
want to I want to real quick go back to talking about Nolan Wheeler for 2 seconds. Zach Wheeler, what he's doing in these playoffs is just insane. Like 3 games pitched, he's 2-0, 2.37 ERA. But this is the stat that I love: 26 strikeouts, 1 walk.
One walk.
That's insane.
Yeah, he's
That's
pitching to
absolutely
everybody.
insane. And, and you would think, hey, that's pretty good. But Aaron Nola is like, hey, hold my beer. He's 3-0 with an ERA of 0.92.
I mean,
And he struck out 19 and has only walked 2. And Aaron Nola is a free agent after this year. So he is just like he's going to get paid from somebody, and I can't wait to see who it is.
yeah, maybe it's the Reds.
No,
So
no, we don't deserve somebody like that. We'll
that's why
we'll
you
just take him and we'll run him into the ground.
that's why you can't have nice
No,
things. That's why you can't
we
have nice
can't.
things. So, all right. So who do you have for Game 3? I know they're not playing tonight. It's going to be tomorrow, I believe. But
Tomorrow afternoon.
yeah,
Yeah.
who do you have
I
winning?
I think it's Philly.
Yeah,
I think it's Philly again because I just don't know how this lineup can be stopped, and nobody has figured that out yet.
this is the only fear. So like now that I've seen them work like a well-oiled machine, I don't want to see it stop. And I'm afraid that if Arizona doesn't take at least 1 or 2 games off of them, there's going to be too much weight before going into the World Series. And I wonder if like we lose this heat that they're riding on because they did it last year. Right? Didn't they jump out to a 2-0 lead in the World Series and then ended up getting swept after that? Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not so worried about that this year because I was worried between the layoff that they had between the end of the Atlanta series and the NLCS. I think it was something like 5 or 6 days, and it didn't matter.
Yeah.
It did not matter. Like they're
They've come out
hitting
hot.
everything right now. Didn't matter.
Hmm.
No, no,
Throwing
they've
beach
put up what
balls.
15 runs in 2 games
Yeah.
after a 6 day layoff. Like I'm not too worried about that with them.
Yeah, they're good, man.
This team, this team seems like this year, this is a hey, we have some unfinished business. We should have won the World Series last year and we let that get away from us. We're all in. And you can tell. So
Well, we definitely it's exciting to watch. It's fun for me. Even though I can't watch the games live, man, I love being able to catch up on them after and go by. So, anything else you wanted to add, Al?
no, no, that's it. Again, like I said, by the time that you hear this on Friday, game three of both the ALCS and NLCS will have happened. And by the time we come back to you on Wednesday, hopefully there's not as many trucks driving by.
Yeah,
A, B, we'll have a better idea of what those league championship series look like. And
yeah,
then at
absolutely.
some point before the World Series starts, we will give you a World Series preview episode.
Yes, we're gonna make
Yeah,
sure we sit down and do that because that's gonna be great. And yeah, the next time you guys hear from us, not only will we be covering some of these games, but we'll also be giving you some Sunday Monday uh, reactions that we had from the NFL this past week.
no.
So, but listen, guys, again, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. Again, if you like it, if you love it, drop a comment. If you don't, let us know as well, or just keep it to yourself. But don't forget to smash that subscribe button, like the video. You can email us at thepulsewa@gmail.com, and you could find me on Twitter at Willie Creeman FF and on Twitch at Willie Creeman. So I really I appreciate it, and listen, I love you, bro. I love you. We did it.
Man, I love
18.
you too, man. And I'm glad 18 episodes we've done. 18 episodes.
Yeah, two
Just
more.
bananas.
Two more. There's a two in front of it. It's awesome. Okay.
We're,
Yeah. Listen, have a great night,
we're
bro.
big
Take
time,
care.
man. I love you, buddy.
Love you too. Peace.